Now, as my last analysis video's proven, I am a massive fan of Marilyn Manson. He's my favourite musician. I find him incredibly interesting as an artist and as a person, but also one that I find gets misinterpreted. There's barely any analysis video on Marilyn Manson, not many on YouTube at least, and because of this it's easy for the common misconception of Marilyn Manson to become the most recognisable. I don't like Marilyn Manson because he's a rebellious figure and I hate my parents. In fact, Marilyn Manson himself has a strong relationship with his mother and father. The reason I like Marilyn Manson is because his music struck a chord with me. Many have said my interest in him is a phase that will soon die out, and I don't mind people thinking that. A fair amount of people that can get into him at a younger age, during an edgy phase, which was when I got into him, but then grow out of him when they get older. I'm not here to argue against that since I'm still at the point of liking his music and I'm not old enough to judge how I'll feel about that decades to come. Along with that, just to clear confusion, the reason it may seem like I'm jumping from song to song miscellaneously isn't due to the songs being similar or me having some overarching connection with the songs I choose. I'm picking the songs I want to analyse in no order to how I choose, and later down the line to address a commenter I do intend to analyse his albums. For now, I'm going to analyse The Last Day on Earth. Now this holds a lot of merit to me being my third favourite song by him. We're still in the triptych area of Marilyn Manson's work, and if you're familiar with his triptych, you notice Marilyn Manson makes concept albums with stories going on throughout the albums to the point where if you listen to them and understand what he's trying to convey, you notice the story unwind. What I find to be the most admirable about this is if you take a song out of the album and listen to it on its own, it still has a lot of merit without it being connected to the overall story. It can still have its own individual message being conveyed. For those familiar with Marilyn Manson's work, you know this song is from the album after Antichrist Superstar, which I briefly went over in my previous analysis to give context to the song The Reflecting God. The Last Day on Earth comes from Mechanical Animals, a concept album that tells the story about a glam rocker called Omega who, similar to the character in Antichrist Superstar, is fed up with the world and the hypocrisy within it. If you know anything about Antichrist Superstar, the main character in that was fed up with the world so much so to demolish it and be done with it entirely. What separates this main character in Mechanical Animals from the one in Antichrist Superstar is that this one appreciates the world despite the problems he finds himself having. The love interest, Coma White, which is commonly believed to be a euphemism for cocaine, is considered both a human being and a drug simultaneously. Omega is caught in a problem of his beliefs and his own love interest. Like I mentioned earlier, if you take the songs from the album and focus on it, then they can still hold their value without the other songs that fill up the album. The Last Day on Earth is my favourite song from Mechanical Animals. On one hand, it complements the overarching story of Omega, but on the other hand, it also focuses on love, and it delves into a lot of personal stories that Marilyn Manson as a person has went through. If you focus on the overarching story, it's Omega caving into a devotion to Coma White, which he wasn't doing before due to his own passion for his moral values, and now he's focusing on Coma White. But now it's too late for Omega, and he's been destroyed with a world he wasn't able to demolish himself, where the only thing he's willing to hold on to is a love interest that he wants to have so he isn't lonely in his last day on Earth. What makes Marilyn Manson so interesting is him taking such a popular theme and putting his own spin on it. In this song, he shows the concept of love having its casualties. It can become an addiction and harm the people invested in it. In the context of this song, Damaged Provider Modules refers to the failure of a society to give a welcoming world to themselves and in turn do the same for their own children. As parents, you're supposed to be there for your kids and take care of them, a slow path that makes the world a better place. Omega takes criticism with that as he sees the world doing the polar opposite effect, and parents being damaged and unstable to provide for their kids and not be able to make the world positive. Omega tricks himself into thinking that he's more humane than the other people in the world despite being completely devoted into Coma White. He no longer holds into his viewpoints and sees them as distant in comparison to his love for Coma White, while criticizing the society for being damaged and broken on the inside and they've completely fried themselves from all the addictions they have, while having an addiction himself. He sees that people are crumbling and compares them to machines, and he can feel that in himself. Omega was promoted as a rebellious figure against the world, and now he thinks people see him as the reason that their world is dying. He's no longer a figure and is so distant from the people and even his own ideas now that the only thing he has is the love interest to hold on to. If everything's going to die, he at least has Coma White. If we're not looking at this so pessimistically, I actually see it as a beautiful expression of everything falling apart and people being estranged, but their love is still together. Because the story itself is inspired from real events, I feel like it relates to Marilyn Manson's first girlfriend and the breakup making him a shallow and cold person. He thinks he's an asshole who didn't realise what he had until she was gone, and now all he wants to do is be with her while everyone's dying and crumbling. And the album itself has so much drug parallels, and Coma White is even associated with cocaine. It's also possible that the happiness he's now found could also be triggered from a high, and his death is coming from letting the addiction consume him and making him OD, leaving him with the bliss of wanting to die with someone he loves. The Last Day on Earth is a beautiful song that encapsulates the thought of wanting to watch the world end with someone you love, and Marilyn Manson's painting of The Last Day on Earth only proves that point further. And it proves that it's one of the things that Marilyn Manson was trying to convey in the song, amongst many other things. For that reason alone, I think that The Last Day on Earth is one of Marilyn Manson's greatest songs, and definitely his best love song. It's a beautiful expression, and it really goes into a lot of the themes that Marilyn Manson seems to want to discuss so much, and for that reason alone, The Last Day on Earth manages to make as my third favourite